In my family, where drama seems to be the only constant, I've been experiencing increasing turmoil due to my father's neglectful attitude and my stepmother's manipulative ways. Recently, their actions have intensified because they want to evict me from my own home to accommodate my stepsister, who is unexpectedly pregnant and currently without a partner due to her boyfriend abandoning her. My father, who is often detached and self-absorbed, has suddenly taken a keen interest in my financial situation after learning about my significant earnings. Despite his usual indifference, he is now eager to cast me out to make room for stepsister, who he views as flawless and incapable of wrongdoing. Stepsister, at 27, has chosen a lifestyle that includes working as in creative nursing and creating content for an account, which doesn't seem to bring her much success or stability. Amidst this chaos, my father is trying to strengthen our family ties, pushing me to forge a connection with my stepmother and stepsister. However, given that he has frequently shirked his responsibilities towards me, his sudden paternal overtures feel disingenuous. Stepsister, who is indeed related to me but was never part of my life due to our estrangement, now needs a place to stay, and my father expects me to sacrifice my home for her. Why strive to maintain my own morals and focus on my career? I find it difficult to understand or accept stepsister's choices. Her profession not only worries me because of the dangers associated with it, but it also starkly contrasts with my values, especially as she struggles to find success or manage her finances without our father's help. As much as this situation frustrates me, I am sharing this story not to seek approval or advice, but to vent my feelings. Although we all have different viewpoints, and you may not agree with mine, I hope this provides some insight into the complexities of my family dynamics. This is a glimpse into a life filled with challenges that are often not of my own making, and I am just trying to navigate it as best as I can. Growing up with my stepmother was challenging. She was known for her sharp tongue and sharper nails, always ready to poke her nose into others' affairs. With a voice that could grate cheese and a penchant for plastic surgery, stepmother was as far from authentic as one could get, often influencing my dad negatively. I strongly believe she was the reason he sent me off to boarding school at the tender age of 8. She had no interest in raising a child who wasn't her own. My father, the central figure in these dramas, often justified his questionable actions by claiming his extensive life experience. He even regretted having me because I wasn't like him, a fact for which I'm grateful. My mother, in contrast, was a pillar of strength and prioritization. She maintained that my dad was not a bad man, just different, and reminded me he would always be my father, encouraging me to remember him as such without bitterness. Their relationship eventually crumbled, leading to a divorce when I was 4. Shortly thereafter, my dad married stepmother. Tragically, my mom died in a car accident when I was 5. She was slightly late picking me up from school one day, which was unusual for her. That day, a drunk driver struck her car at an intersection. She passed away, and the driver, though arrested, survived. The profound loneliness of that period still lingers with me. Years later, I've worked hard to establish my independence. By 15, I was working. After boarding school, I pursued college, but remained mostly on my own. Recently, I managed to buy my own house, a significant personal achievement. Though my relationship with my family remained strained, I invited them to my housewarming, seeking some semblance of normalcy. Unfortunately, my father's reaction was less than joyful, tinged with envy and passive aggression about my achievements. A week later, he urgently requested a meeting at my house. Upon arrival, I found stepmother visibly angry and my half-sister upset. It turned out stepsister was pregnant, and her boyfriend had abandoned her. My father accused me of neglecting the family, questioning my lack of involvement and concern. This confrontation highlighted the ongoing familial tensions and the emotional gap that had widened over the years. As we gathered in the living room, the atmosphere was charged with frustration and disappointment. My father provocatively questioned if I was deliberately ignoring the family's plight or simply oblivious. He suggested that my recent success had made me arrogant, blind to the realities of those who mattered to me. Confused and hurt by his accusations, I tried to understand the gravity of the situation. It was a poignant reminder of the complex dynamics that still defined our family relationships. As I grappled with the unfolding family drama, I could only muster up the courage to ask stepsister if she could financially handle her situation. The question earned me stern looks from both stepsister and stepmother, but my intentions were genuine. In my mind, I had already braced for their request for financial support, and I was prepared to help. However, the conversation took a sharp turn when my dad joined me and implied that my upbringing had lacked lessons in brotherly duties, suggesting that true brothers would sacrifice everything for their sister's well-being. His words struck a nerve. I respect my responsibilities, but his expectations were beyond reasonable. My father's request escalated quickly when he suggested that I should give up my house to stepsister. My immediate response was a firm no. I explained that while I was willing to assist financially, relinquishing my home was out of the question. I offered stepsister a room to stay in rent-free until she found her footing, but this compromise was met with shouts from my dad, dismissing my proposal as nonsensical. He pressed further, not only expecting me to give stepsister my home, but also to purchase another for myself and take on all her financial burdens, including bills and maintenance demands that were unrealistic given her current situation. The conversation heated up, and I had to stand my ground firmly, stating such an arrangement was impossible. The situation reached a breaking point a week later when I returned from work to find movers at my house, instructed by my father to clear out my belongings. I was astounded and rushed to clarify that I was the homeowner and demanded they cease immediately. Inside, the confrontation continued with my dad and stepsister still insisting on their demands. I threatened to call the police, which finally led them to leave, though not without hurling insults my way. Reflecting on the ordeal, I felt torn. The disconnection and lack of concern they showed during my upbringing contrasted sharply with their current expectations of self-sacrifice from me. Feeling isolated, I turned to online communities for support, unsure if cutting ties was the right decision, despite the toxicity of their demands. A week after sharing my story, stepsister reached out wanting to meet, suggesting we talk at my house. Still shaken by the previous encounter, I opted for a neutral location, a coffee shop. Initially uneasy, stepsister revealed a twist. Contrary to what our father believed, it wasn't her boyfriend who had commitment issues, it was her. She confessed her struggles with commitment just days after announcing her pregnancy, which led to a heated exchange with her boyfriend. This revelation added layers to the complexity of our family dynamics and made me reconsider the extent of my involvement with them, balancing the need for personal boundaries with familial ties. During our meeting at the coffee shop, stepsister revealed some troubling details about her recent life that explained a lot about her current predicament. The atmosphere was heavy as she recounted the moment her boyfriend discovered something about her that led to their breakup. He was furious, creating a scene and even damaging property in his anger before abruptly leaving her. Since then, he had been unresponsive, only sending a cold message about ending their relationship unless she made a drastic decision about her pregnancy. Stepsister admitted she wasn't perfect and hinted at some complicated aspects of her life that she was reluctant to share with me, her brother. She alluded to past activities linked to creative nursing, which she was hesitant to discuss in detail. I sensed her discomfort and didn't press further. She then confided about her aspirations and the harsh reality that crushed them. Stepsister had once dreamed of being an artist, of painting and creating, but our stepmother, had swiftly quashed these dreams. Stepmother had persuaded her that a life in art wouldn't be lucrative or stable, and pushed her toward finding a wealthy partner instead. At just 23, stepsister found herself seeking approval in the eyes of affluent, older men, guided by stepmother's skewed values. Her journey into modeling began with hope, but quickly descended into exploitation. A man in his 40s promised her a break in the industry, introducing her to a glamorous world of parties and expensive gifts. However, her big break turned out to be a facade for darker transactions. She was coerced into spending nights with men under the guise of securing modeling gigs that never materialized. When she discovered that she was being sold for profit by the very person who was supposed to be her mentor, she was too scared to confront him, fearing for her safety. Eventually, she walked away from that world, choosing to take on minimum wage jobs instead. Trying to build a life away from the shadows of her past, stepsister faced ridicule from stepmother for choosing honest work over the exploitative demands of her previous lifestyle. Stepsister then experimented with dating for money, which led to more complications, including encounters with obsessive individuals who felt entitled to more than just her company. Her foray into online platforms like OnlyFans was brief and unsuccessful, hindered by her discomfort with the camera and the social demands of the medium. When she reconnected with a former coworker, now a graphic designer, things seemed to look up. They started a relationship, and for a while, she lived a quieter life, supported modestly by her boyfriend. However, her secretive past caught up with her. Her pregnancy unveiled everything, leading to their breakup. As stepsister shared her story, the weight of her struggles and the complex web of decisions and circumstances that led her to this moment were palpable. She was clearly in a vulnerable place, wrestling with the consequences of her choices and the influences of those around her, including our stepmother's destructive guidance. The conversation was a stark reminder of the difficult paths life can take and the profound impact of family dynamics on individual trajectories. In a rather intense conversation at the coffee shop, stepsister revealed some intricate and troubling parts of her life, explaining her current situation with potential fathers for her unborn child. She mentioned that a few men were supporting her financially because they each thought they might be the father of her child. One of them had even proposed, though she was aware that their intentions might not be as noble as they seemed, especially since they knew of her past as in creative nursing. This complex web of relationships was known to our stepmother, who had encouraged stepsister to accept the proposal and deceive the man into believing he was the father, a suggestion stepsister found morally unsettling. Stepsister told me that she had confided in me because she couldn't share these details with our father, who believed she was simply struggling financially from her modest modeling income. Stepmother was pushing for a marriage that stepsister wanted no part of, particularly due to the man's age and her discomfort with living a lie. When stepsister asked for my help, her request extended beyond financial support. She hoped I would reconcile with our father and temporarily move out of my house to ease the tension. I was taken aback by her suggestion. It felt like she was asking too much. I explained that while I could help financially, I was not willing to leave my home. This led her to accuse me of selfishness, echoing our father's harsh words, and she stormed off, deeply upset. Feeling conflicted about the accusations and stepsister's painful predicament, I continued to ponder the ethical and emotional layers of her story. Despite understanding her truthfulness, I struggled with whether her truth justified her requests. A week later, I met with our father at a bar to discuss these issues further. He tried to convince me that because I was financially stable and without a family of my own, I should buy another house and let stepsister have my current home, arguing it would provide a stable environment for the baby. He also mentioned that he and stepmother planned to move in with stepsister into my house, which was utterly shocking to me. The situation took an unexpected turn when the bartender, overhearing our conversation, laughed and revealed himself as stepsister's ex-boyfriend. He shared that he'd had a vasectomy and couldn't be the father of stepsister's child, accusing her of deception and infidelity. This revelation visibly shook our father, changing his demeanor from confrontational to defeated. Later that evening, stepsister showed up at my doorstep, distraught, blaming me for ruining everything. It turned out the bartender's confrontation had profound repercussions. Our father, disgusted with the revelations and disillusioned by stepsister's actions, demanded that she change her ways and stop her creative nursing activities. He expressed deep disappointment and skepticism about her future prospects for finding a respectable partner. As stepsister poured out her grievances, I offered her comfort, trying to navigate the delicate balance between supporting her and maintaining my boundaries. It was clear that the situation required careful handling, empathy, but also firmness in protecting my own space and well-being. The family dynamics had reached a point where every interaction seemed to unravel further complexities and emotional turmoil. Stepsister came over, visibly shaken, soon after my last encounter with our father. She apologized for mistakenly accusing me of stirring trouble. It turns out our dad had confronted her right after meeting me, and she assumed I had said something to upset him. I forgave her quickly. These misunderstandings were becoming all too common. As she vented, stepsister brought up how our stepmother had been unusually quiet during Dad's lecture about loyalty and good women, almost as if she couldn't contribute to that conversation. Stepsister hinted that stepmother's silence might be because she's embroiled in her own issues, ones she can't openly discuss. Partly because she is heavily involved in her Tilson community, which stepsister seemed to think was a cover for something else. I was confused but didn't press the issue as stepsister continued to unravel emotionally. The conversation took a heavy turn towards family dynamics and responsibilities. Stepsister admitted she felt out of options and somewhat desperate. 5 days after that emotional exchange, I went to see Dad to propose a compromise. I would help support stepsister and her child by providing a room and covering some initial costs like diapers, but I insisted that stepsister needed to find work, suggesting freelancing or remote jobs as feasible options. Surprisingly, Dad was less confrontational than usual. He even shared some personal reflections, revealing that he thought I hated him because he believed my mom had hated him. I corrected him, explaining that Mom never badmouthed him to me. Instead, she always assured me of his love. Dad then opened up about his relationship with my mother and how they married quickly after discovering they were pregnant with me, a decision driven more by obligation than love. He confessed that he never really felt a connection with Mom, and his affair with stepmother was sparked by a passion he hadn't experienced with my mother. This affair led to a messy confrontation when stepmother, pregnant and insecure, decided to reveal the truth to my mother, ultimately resulting in their divorce. Hearing Dad recount these painful memories was tough. He admitted that after Mom's passing, bringing me home was difficult for stepmother, who feared I might become a priority over their new baby due to Dad's guilt or nostalgia. That's why he sent me to boarding school to keep the peace at home. As we were talking, stepmother appeared, seemingly ready to leave for a Mary Tilson class. She quickly exited, but something about her behavior struck me as off. On a whim, I decided to follow her, curious about her so-called Mary Tilson sessions. She drove to a Mary Tilson, parked, and after a cautious look around, walked into an alley and entered another car, where she was warmly greeted by the driver with a hug and a kiss before they drove off. This unexpected revelation left me stunned. The pieces of stepsister's hints and stepmother's quiet demeanor at home began to form a clearer picture of deceit and secrets. I needed time to process these shocking developments and consider the next steps for dealing with the tangled web of relationships and lies within my family. I was barely able to keep my composure. My jaw clenched tight as I parked and made my way into the Mary Tilson. I was looking for stepmother, hoping to confirm her attendance, but the staff at the club refused to share any personal information. Despite my insistence, claiming concern for her safety, they informed me that no one by her name was registered there. Frustrated, I returned to my car and waited. Overwhelmed by a sudden impulse, I started recording when I saw a familiar car pull up. A man emerged, greeted stepmother with a hug, a kiss, and a slap on her backside before she joyfully headed towards the parking lot. Clearly, this was no ordinary Mary Tilson session. Feeling a mix of anger and betrayal, I drove away before she could see me. The truth was now painfully clear. My dad, who had once betrayed my mom, was now on the receiving end of deception. He had tried to call me a few times, but I couldn't bring myself to answer, torn about confronting stepmother with what I had witnessed. After a tumultuous week and your supportive messages, I finally mustered the courage to confront stepmother directly. I visited when Dad and stepsister were out. Casually, I inquired about her Mary Tilson classes. She claimed she attended daily, even mentioning a fictitious instructor. When I pressed further, revealing the inconsistencies in her story and that I knew her Mary Tilson had no female instructors, she faltered, her voice trembling and her hands still. She demanded to know how I knew where her club was. Admitting I had followed her, I confronted her with what I had seen and captured on video. She initially denied everything, but when I showed her the video, she was left speechless. Shockingly, she confessed that none of it mattered anymore as she was planning to divorce Dad anyway. Stepmother revealed that the man from the club was an old lover, rekindled when it seemed safe. Their affair had a long history, complicated by his previous marriage and financial entanglements. She admitted that she had been calculating in her relationship with my dad, using him as a fallback while her lover sorted out his affairs. Now, with her lover free and successful, she felt secured. As we were talking, Dad appeared in the doorway, his presence marked by shock and rage. The next few days were chaotic. Dad confronted both stepmother and stepsister, leading to a painful family discussion about trust and relationships. In the end, Dad asked stepmother and stepsister to leave, and he began processing a divorce. Now, stepmother, desperate and disconnected from her lover, has asked for my help, hoping to leverage the video I recorded. She even tried to appeal to my sympathy for stepsister, who was caught in the middle of this mess. I'm left wondering whether to delete the video, keeping it from further complicating things, or to use it in some way to help settle the turmoil.